So let's go ahead and get it started. So what's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to this live stream interview here on Mika Sesukasa. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. Today, I have a very special guest. You might not know who he is. He isn't really that popular. But I told him I would do him a favor by bringing him on my channel. So I would like to introduce you all to Kyle Kulinski. What's going on, Kyle? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? That was a good introduction. I liked it.
Oh, man. Hey, look, first of all, glad you're feeling better. I'm sure a lot of people missed you. But, just to let everybody know, like a little bit of why you were kind of dark for a little bit regarding the potential of you catching the coronavirus.
Yeah, I spoke about this a little bit on my show, but like I may have had it, I may not have had it. I lean on the side of I probably had it because I was basically social distancing and by myself a lot. I had only gone to the store a handful of times, and when I went, I covered my face and everything. So I was like the poster boy of social distancing. But 2 Thursdays ago, I woke up and in the middle of the night, it was 4 a.m. and I was just absolutely freezing. And I was like, oh no, here we go. So I took my temperature. I had a low-grade fever, and I was like, this guy. Because that never happens with me. I never get a fever. My resting temperature is usually pretty low, and like I never wake up in the middle of the night freezing. Like all of it just didn't add up. And I was like, all right, here we go. So basically, the Thursday night was bad. Then I had extreme fatigue, and Friday I was extreme fatigue, and I had that fever still. And then Saturday it was the worst. It peaked, and then after Saturday, I slowly but surely got better, and on like day 5 or 6, I was 100% better. And I don't know if I had it because I never had the cough, and I never had the dry cough, and I never had throat problems. So I don't know if I had it or not, but I lean on the side that I did have it, and I almost hope I did have it because that means I have the antibodies and I'm good now.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm about to say. It's. I mean, if you only had like a 7-day period of just, a peak at the third or fourth day. I mean, that's kind of good because from some of the stories that I've heard, even from people our age, have not been good. But I'm glad that you're here and you had a speedy recovery. I don't know what the world would do without Kyle Kulinski talking shit to the blue checks on Twitter, man. You be holding it down for us lowly folk out here, man, trying to, it's funny because I feel like there's rarely a person that I've seen be able to ruffle the feathers of neoliberal blue check Twitter than you, to the point where they feel like they have to prove themselves to you. And Mehdi Hasan seems to be taking this a little bit personally. Can you talk a little bit about like that interaction with you and Mehdi Hasan on Twitter and why? Because usually you go back and forth a little bit, but you don't elongate it like to the degree that it was happening that night. But it seems like you were kind of like specifically pissed at the narrative that he was trying to put out to get people to not only support Biden, but what it seemed like he was trying to do was almost denigrate the validity of your arguments without actually engaging the substance of the arguments.
Yeah, that was like right in the middle of when I thought I may have had COVID too. So like I had zero patience, and it's funny because people think of me as like I'm a brawler on Twitter, or like I'm looking for arguments or whatever. I swear to God, it's the opposite. Like I'm never looking to like get into Twitter fights or anything, because it's like it takes so much time and effort and energy, and it's like I just got better things I'd rather put my time into. So basically, one of the things I tweeted, and this got under a lot of people's skin, and I got like a lot of angry responses for it, but I said like, you know what? Fine, I'll own it. If you guys want to blame me if Trump gets reelected because I didn't vote for Biden, go right ahead and blame me. But then I said the logical conclusion from that is, well, I guess you better start listening to me and start taking my concern seriously, because you're admitting that you need my vote in order to win. So to turn around and then start shaming me and spitting in my eye and telling me like I'm terrible, that's not a very good strategy. So I basically was just giving in to the framing that's been hurled at the left for so long, where they try to say like, you're the reason why, you got these terrible, nefarious Republicans in power. Now, there are two sides to that. Like, on the one hand, no, because I'm not voting for these Republicans, so it's not my fault. But then on the other hand, like, okay, if you want to say that me not voting leads to them getting elected, fine. Then I'll take it. I'll own it. There's no problem with that. But then I guess you really have to start listening to me and taking my concerns seriously, because by your own logic, you need my vote, so you better listen to me. And then, of course, Mehdi Hasan just started chirping, and he came to me with, like, I would question your left-wing credentials then if if you're not going to vote for Biden. And it's like, okay, well then you're an idiot because left-wing credentials go unquestioned. As a co-founder of Justice Democrats, as somebody who's been doing this for such a long time, like all the people that Mehdi Hasan yes queens on Twitter, like OC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who you think helped get him elected. But now all of a sudden, because I don't want to vote for your terrible candidate, therefore my left-wing credentials are questioned. And that's what's annoying to me, Niko, is that, it's one thing to have a disagreement. That's totally fine. We can have a disagreement. We could talk it out. You and I have disagreed on many things, but we have open and fair conversations. I'm not strawmanning you. You're not strawmanning me. But what happens with Mehdi is that he always insists on telling you what you believe. And it's like, no. You can ask me, dog. I'm right here. You could ask me and I'll tell you what I believe. Stop putting thoughts in my head and words in my mouth. And that's what I couldn't stand, is that the whole thing is he's trying to tell me what I believe. And it's like, no, I'm not going to stand for that because you're wrong. And what you're saying I believe is not what I believe. So let me break it down for you. And then, of course, he just ignores it and goes right back to his stupid talking point.
He straw man the hell out of you. And I covered that. And it was interesting because he tried to present a scenario to you that literally isn't reality. He was like, you have no choice other than to pick Biden or Trump. Who do you pick? It's like, but those aren't the options. The options are I can vote for Biden, or I can vote for Trump, or I cannot vote for either, or I can vote for the Green Party, or I can vote for the Libertarian Party, or I can vote for the down ballots and not vote for any presidential candidate. There are a plethora of even outside of voting. No, I can organize and make sure that we don't end up with this scenario like last time. And once again, as compared to Mehdi Hasan, you started the Justice Democrats and to put the onus on yourself, regardless of how people may feel about the Justice Democrats. You put the onus on yourself to do something about the scenario that we had been presented with in 2016. Mehdi Hasan did nothing but pontificate and capitulate, to be quite fair. And so I really find it frustrating when we try because I like to engage with people I disagree with. I think you would agree with that. We talked about that off air a lot. And now what I don't like is when I'm engaging with someone I disagree with and they're using red herring arguments. They're not actually engaging us on the substance of the issue. There's no way you can have a discussion about how horrible Trump is because of X, Y, and Z, and then tell me to vote for Biden when he is absolutely guilty of those same things. Now, I do have a question for you, just to clarify, because I think that you sucked it up and held your nose up and voted for Hillary in 2016, right?
No, I didn't vote for Hillary in 2016.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
No. But what I did say is this. So I voted for Jill Stein in New York.
Oh, I did too, yeah.
My argument to my audience was, number one, I'm not telling you what I would do, so you have to make up your own mind. But I did say that had I lived in a swing state, I probably would have sucked it up and voted for Hillary. So
yeah, okay, that's what it was.
Right, that's where you thought I may have voted for her.
But even you saying that though, that's more than I would have given, because I damn sure didn't say that. And I was in New York at the time, right. But even if I lived in a swing state, my feelings wouldn't have changed. Now it seems like you have kind of changed because you were kind of being considerate. Look, we know that Bernie's probably going to run again, and I feel like progressives have been more than fair to the DNC, right? They participate in the Unity Commission. They, try to meet them in the middle on a lot of issues. We asked them to meet us in the middle by doing something as simple as just trying to hold a fair election. That's all we asked for. We didn't ask for a lot, but apparently that's too radical. That's too radical. So, but when you are looking at the way people voted in 2016, I feel like the Democrats are grossly underestimating how many people held their nose and voted for Hillary in spite of what they knew to be true, because they were like, look, if we play ball now, they can't use this against us for if they try to cheat Bernie in the future, or if they want to cheat Bernie in the future. But a lot of people did play ball. We got to 2019, 2020, and we saw, in my opinion, a worse example of what we saw in 2016. Because they couldn't even kind of rest on the laurels of, well, this is Hillary Clinton, or she's a woman, she just made so many connections in the party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a worse candidate who has a far less likely chance of beating Trump than Hillary did, and yet we're going to be the ones who take the blame again. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm actually fine. If they want to blame me, I'm fine with that, but then you have to listen to me. If you're telling me that I'm the reason Trump wins, then okay, I guess that you're admitting I'm the swing voter you need, so come and get me. See the point that I'm trying to make on that is I'm not I'm not running away from what they're claiming. I'm owning it. I'm like, okay, if you want to blame me for Trump, fine, blame me for Trump, but then you have to try to get my vote. Like, that's the logical conclusion. The logical conclusion isn't, damn, I'm going to blame Kyle for Trump, and also now I'm going to try to alienate him even more. Because that makes no sense. Because then it's like you're admitting, like, I'm just going to lose in perpetuity forever as far as the eye can see. So it's like I'm willing to own that. But to get back to one of the points you were making before, that caveat that I had in 2016 where I said, like, listen, if I was in a swing state, I'd probably suck it up and vote for Hillary. I told my audience this time around, and I actually slightly disagree in that I think Biden and Hillary are basically the same. Like, they're super similar to me. I don't think one is necessarily worse than the other, except Biden has cognitive decline or whatever. But
that's a fair argument.
That caveat that I did in 2016 is gone now. Like, I've told my audience, and again, I can only speak for myself. I can't tell anybody else what to do, but like, I wouldn't vote for him even if I wouldn't vote for Biden even if I lived in a swing state. Like, I would sit out this election either way, because in 2016, I feel like there was a part of everybody was kind of saying, like, okay, maybe I'll suck it up and do the lesser evilism voting, but the other half of that equation is like, I'm not going to have to do this again, because by the time the next election comes around, then we'll get somebody who's decent enough where we don't feel terrible voting for the person. And that didn't happen. So it's like now I'm just at the point where my patience is gone. Like, I have no more patience, and I'm not going to, like, what they're asking me to do is give up on all of your principles and your beliefs and go vote for Biden. And it's like, no, why would I do that? That makes no sense. Like, I've given people exactly what my standards are. I've been a total open book with what Biden would have to do to get my support. And he's not going to do, and he hasn't done any of those things. So I keep telling people, it's not on me, it's on him. Like, there is a conceivable scenario where I would be in favor of voting for him, and I would have to go around and make my arguments to people and say, listen, here's why I'm going to vote for him. Because here are my top 5 issues, Medicare for all, free college, living wage, ending the wars, universal basic income. Joe Biden, I'm convinced now that Joe Biden believes in at least 2 of those, and he's going to fight for those. But I'm not convinced of that, and I don't think he's going to fight for them. So why would I vote for him? And then I kept giving exceptions. I was like, okay, fine. So he's not going to fight for any of the things I care about. Okay, Bernie or Nina for VP. If you pick Bernie or Nina for VP, I'm down. I'll do it. He said, of course, he's not going to do that. And so then I was like, all right, fine, one more exception. If Bernie Sanders knew how to play hardball and brought Joe Biden a list of 10 executive orders and said, listen, if you do these in the first 100 days, I'll fight for you to get elected. And it could be bang executive orders like, legalize marijuana. There's a lot of stuff you could do just through executive orders. So if Bernie had done that, if Bernie played hardball, then I'd be able to turn around and say, well, he is going to legalize marijuana and he's going to do it in the first 100 days. So why wouldn't I vote for him? But he's not going to do any of those things. So the point that I keep trying to make to people is like, if somebody's guaranteed to not do any of the things that you want, why the hell would I vote for him? And where I differ from some people, like I differ a little bit from Jimmy Dore, where I think Jimmy thinks like, not only am I not voting, I'm doing it as a strategy. For me, it's not even a strategy. It's just a matter of principle. It's just you're not going to do any of the things I want to do, so this is what I'm going to do in response to that. I'm not saying that like, oh, if we sit out, then in the long game, the chess pieces will move in a way that'll be beneficial to us. I have no idea if what's going to happen is going to be beneficial to us or not. All I'm saying is, if you can't pass my lenient standards, it's a wrap. I can't vote for you.
Yeah, I know. And I would say that you've probably been more fair than most people would be, more compromising in that regard than most people would be. I'm not as compromising. We both know, compared to us, Jimmy is far, far less compromising. And I can't really blame him for being less compromising. And I think it's even more insulting because you said something regarding like, look, we thought that there might be a better opportunity for us to get what we'd like in the progressive, or at least a decent candidate by the time 2020 came, and it didn't. But in my opinion, I can't vote for you like, because it's beyond we didn't get what we wanted. What you did was convince us that we had or not me, I didn't really believe that, but they convinced a lot of people there was an opportunity for us to get a progressive candidate or a populist candidate as the nominee. All we had to do was work with the Democratic Party, and you got your superdelegates eliminated, so it should be fine, and all these different things. They use a lot of red herring, and they gaslighted us enough to make us think that if there was a reason that our candidates did not get a chance to win, then it was progressives' fault. You know, you got everything you want. It's just your platform, despite the fact that almost everything your people support is, supported, like Medicare for all and even UBI, anti-regime change war policies and things like that. That's supported widely through all the political spectrums by anybody in any political party. And you're going to tell us that our candidates were just not popular, but the candidates is not popular was not, by the way, a lot of things that when we're talking about Biden, for example, that people aren't really discussing is the voter suppression, the ridiculous margin in the exit polling, and how Biden suddenly overcame all the polling that Bernie was beating him. And I know, like, a lot of people like to say, oh, well, the coalescing with the centrists is why that happened, but none of them were that popular anyway. I mean, we can also talk about the Elizabeth Warren thing, which we'll address in a little bit, but I don't think that we can just pretend like Biden overcame all this polling. And like I said, and I always will say, it's crazy how every single time there's a mishap, there's a problem with the machines, there's a problem with apps, it almost always favors the establishment. How come we are never cut a break in these situations? And so when you're combining all that stuff together, you know, y'all tried to pretend like we had a chance that we never had, which means money, time, and effort and labor was wasted when we never had a chance to begin with.
So are you convinced? Are you convinced that the exit poll theory is correct and the election was just flat out stolen?
Yeah. So, for example, in New Hampshire, I'm sure you're paying attention as Pete Buttigieg randomly comes back to like be close to tying with Bernie. So I was in New Hampshire at that time, and we were covering the polling locations. And before I went, I did a bunch of research into the voting machines. The only county, there are 3 counties that have voting machines in New Hampshire. All 3 of those counties just so happen to be the metropolitan areas and the largest counties or precincts in New Hampshire. Now, as Bernie was beating the hell out of almost everybody in every precinct, except for a few exclusions for Klobuchar, Buttigieg was not doing well. But then we get to the 3 counties that have voting machines. Now, Kyle, I asked them when we went to the voting location, I said, yo, these machines can't be hacked, right? Are you sure? He was like, yeah, man, it's because they can't be connected to the internet. And I'm like, but isn't that a slot right there for a SIM card, right? Because everybody knows SIM cards do connect to the internet. He said, well, yeah, well, no, it's that's for others. That's like a memory card slot. It's not true. It was a SIM card slot. I did extensive research. So, but the thing was, this gentleman wasn't even being nefarious. He was told that by somebody else when I asked him. So these 3 counties that use these machines, which have been classified as the most hackable machines out of any voting machines, which is why almost every single state has gotten rid of it, those machines all had ridiculous disparities in exit polling, or the precincts that use those machines have ridiculous disparities in exit polling. Now, if this was just a one-time thing, and it was kind of sporadic amongst different parties when this happened, then I wouldn't be as inclined to believe it. However, or at least I'll exercise more skepticism. But when we see this habit where the exit polling is off 3, 4, 5, 6%, 9% in some cases, and it's not like that for any other party, not like that for the Republican Party, not like that for the Green Party, not like that for the Libertarian parties, who are also holding primaries, by the way, and it's only like that for the Green Party, or excuse me, for the Democratic Party, and it only ever favors the establishment candidate. There's no such thing as political coincidences in politics, especially when it's that consistent. You know what I mean?
So you think Bernie actually won? And if he won, like, what do you think the margin was like? Do you think that he won like a plurality of the popular vote, or do you think
California, he won? He won by a ridiculous margin. And they knew he was going to win by a ridiculous margin. That's why they started. I'm sure you kept up a little bit with some of the drama going on with their electoral system. They tried to implement a flood of changes within the last year and a half that they had never used before. Introduced brand new voting machines that hadn't been tested before. And they were actually, and we caught them multiple times on tape, the Convo Couch did, lying. They were literally lying about the electoral process there. So then we caught them, handing the night before, because they had early voting. The night before the main election, for the early voting, Pasta, Fiorella, and Johnny went to a location just to see how they were running the thing. So the power, quote unquote, had went out. So they said, oh, because the power is out, we have to give you all provisional ballots. Now, by definition, provisional ballots are at the bare minimum, even if we're being optimistic, they're not counted that night. 9 times out of 10, they're not counted that week. And there is not really any accountability on whether or not those votes are going to be counted at all or counted towards the candidate that the person intended to vote for. And so they were handing out these provisional ballots, and Pasta catches them in real time to ask them, why are you giving them these provisional ballots? They say, oh, because the power is out. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, so are you still going to run these through a machine? They're like, well, yeah. Well, the other ballot is supposed to be a paper ballot anyway that you're going to run through the same machine. So why not just collect all the paper ballots, the regular ballots, and just run them when the power comes back on? They couldn't give him an answer. So this is the type of behavior that we saw, which is, and of course, Warren staying in the race at that point didn't help. But when you're looking at California, a place where Joe Biden didn't have a single campaign office, when I tell you I saw maybe two signs in the entire time I was in California during that primary of Joe Biden, it doesn't make any sense. Don't get me wrong, that's a social justice warrior type of state. The Joe Biden nonsense doesn't fly. Hillary was a woman, identity politics, it plays into the identity of California. Joe Biden does not. And for them to convince me somehow that Joe Biden did just exponentially better than he was predicted to do in almost every single state, even the states that Bernie had previously won in, it's not a coincidence. All the states that Bernie had won in, except for maybe Iowa, when he didn't technically win that, he more so tied it in 2016. They all replaced their caucuses with voting machines. The states that he won in, as you know, also had paper ballots that were taken away and replaced with voting machines with proprietary software that we have no access to. So we can't even go back and verify. And if the margin is outside of a certain point, then to a certain degree, Bernie can't even challenge it. So it has to look like beatdown sometimes. And if he challenges a margin where he actually won, you look like an asshole.
Yeah.
So it puts him in a precarious predicament. Go ahead.
So let me give you my overall theory on what happened. So I'll just say up front, I'm more agnostic on that idea. I haven't dismissed the exit poll stuff, but I'm definitely agnostic on it, because when you look at what happened in Iowa, I mean, that was such a clear example of course they're screwing with it, and to the point that if you denied that they were screwing with it, people would be like, oh, you're ridiculous. Like, you just haven't been following it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you can't say they didn't screw with it in Iowa because the evidence was just undeniable. It was so over the top. It was so in your face, from the fact that Mayor Pete's campaign funded, the app, and there was a connection between Mayor Pete and the people who were, running the Iowa Democratic Party. And it was just, there was so much going on where it was just a slap in the face, where I was like, oh, this is like clearly corrupt, and they're clearly messing with it, to the point where there was this dude on Twitter. He's a reporter. I forget the outlet he's a reporter for, but his name is Daniel, and he was detailing all of the specific mistakes. Like, it wasn't one of those things where it's just a general, like, oh, there was maybe a mistake here or there. He's like, in this particular precinct, in this particular county, here's what happened, here are the sheets, and they ended up giving more delegates away from Bernie and gave it to somebody else. Yep. And all of it was so detailed to the point where he followed it every step of the way, and they verified provably incorrect results. Like, it was provably incorrect results, and they verified it.
Fiorella caught them as well. She just happened to be at the first precinct when they tried to take a delegate away in a coin flip and give it to Buttigieg. And after all the delegates had been assigned already, and they were supposed to be closing out the location.
So my point on Iowa is that alone leads me to not at all dismiss even the most extreme conspiracies about what went on, because that's evidence in that direction that all this stuff is possible. Now, the evidence in the other direction would be, first of all, Trump won in 2016, and Trump, not the establishment candidate, was able to beat Hillary. So that's like, okay, well, maybe sometimes, it's not like perfectly coordinated. And the other piece of evidence is that I do think on some level that what happened with all of the centrists backing Biden at the last minute, I do think, and the exit polls were showing this as well, that like there's a demographic, Niko, that you and I just do not relate to at all. It's like older, middle-aged and older suburban white voters who like literally all they want to do is just get rid of Trump, and they've been told a million times from CNN and MSNBC that Biden's the way to do that. So I just think that there's like almost like it's possible there was like a sleeper Biden vote out there and Bernie was unable to expand his coalition, because I actually think that most of the blame for this, I think, really does go to Bernie, because I think there were things he could have done where he definitely would have increased his chances of winning. And I actually thought at a certain point, I got angry with him, because it's like, you're being flat out disrespectful to the working people who just donated their last $20 to you. Meanwhile, you're slamming your own surrogate when your surrogate accurately calls Joe Biden corrupt.
I can't believe it. Oh, man.
That's disrespectful to the people who are donating money to you and putting all their hopes in you. And the fact that you wouldn't even, they had a line prepared for him about, remember when Biden said nothing will fundamentally change? They had a line prepared for Bernie at one of the debates on that, and he didn't deliver it. And it's like, well, at that point, man, like, what do you want me to tell you? You're just weak. Like, as much as I love Bernie, and I do, but he's just weak. Like, he actually has bent the knee to the Democratic Party, and he genuinely believes that the Democratic Party, it's full of the lesser evils, and so I got to do what I got to do. But fundamentally, he's weak, and, you know, that's not what people thought they were signing up for. That's not what people thought they needed. And, you know, now we're seeing the results of that, where we got, you know, Biden versus Trump, one rapist versus another, one war criminal versus another, one dementia patient versus another.
But
so,
but listen, Kyle, you're not understanding though. Biden's a Democrat. Did you look at that part though? I mean, I know you're. Let's ignore all the other stuff. He's a Democrat, Kyle. You don't want a Democrat to win.
He's not.
What's bizarre, bro? What's bizarre about this is like the endorsements are coming more so after the allegations. It's fucking weird.
No. Here's now I'm going to get slightly conspiratorial, because it's almost like they timed it exactly for when more news about him being a sexual assaulter keeps coming out. Like it's immediate every time. Like news about Tara Reid sexual assault, news about a new sexual assault. Boom, Pramila Jayapal endorses him. Boom, Nancy Pelosi endorses him. Boom, Hillary Clinton endorses him. It's like they're going tip for tat.
A bunch of women. Out. It was another one too. Oh, AOC says it on Fat Joe's Instagram Live. There's another one too. I feel like there's another woman who just came out and supported it. Oh, Warren did. That was the other one, which we all knew anyway. So
it's just so sad to watch it happen. Like, it's one thing if they want to go vote for him, all right, man, go vote for him. But don't. The problem is, like, in order to make arguments to vote in favor of him, they just don't tell us the truth. Like, you're just saying things that are wrong, and that's what gets under my skin.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the most frustrating thing to me about Tulsi endorsing him. Although, like, I knew it was coming because of the COVID-19 situation, and she messaged me and let me know in advance to like, hey, this is happening. But it's like he's antithetical to everything, especially when we're talking about regime change. He's the opposite of her. No. But that also speaks to just how gross the DNC is. Like, they made it clear from the beginning, if you're running for office and you don't endorse Biden and you're running under the Democratic banner, we will crush you.
That's right.
And that's what's the most, and for her, after all the abuse she had taken, I kind of get it, because she didn't campaign for him after, that's for damn sure. She has a fundraise for him. There's not been one email with her name attached to it, but it's still frustrating because of, like, we can't pretend like Biden's record isn't out there. We can't pretend like he's not a literal segregationist. We can't pretend like he's not an alleged rapist, and like these allegations aren't getting more and more credible. I know how people like to conveniently forget about Scalia and Clarence Thomas, but I have not forgotten about those two votes. For everybody likes to try to throw the Supreme Court argument out there. Every argument that you can make against Trump, I can make tenfold against Biden. That's what's so bad. And yet we're having people try and convince us that he's somehow the lesser, quote unquote, of two evils. Go ahead. Susie, I can't hear. Say it one more time, Kyle. Oh, he froze. There you go. You're back. Say that one more time, because you froze for a second.
No, I just said you froze on me. I missed you mid-rant there.
But yeah, I was just saying, like, you can't convince me that Biden's the lesser of two evils when I can make every single argument that you can make against Trump, against Biden, but tenfold over a career of 40 years or so.
So on this one, I do have a slight disagreement with you on this one. Now, my whole thing is that I would argue that both Trump and Biden are beyond the pale. So they're in other words, I have my minimum standards, and I think that they're both beyond the pale. But I'm actually fine conceding that in certain ways Biden is better than Trump. But I'm also fine conceding that in certain ways Trump is better than Biden. So it's a little bit of a complex picture here, but I agree that yes, you're right about the Clarence Thomas thing, but if Biden was president, who would he nominate for the Supreme Court? He would pick somebody like Merrick Garland. He'd pick like a centrist. He wouldn't pick some insane, super religious far right winger. So fair enough. You want to say?
Well, we don't know that because so here's what the problem is. In order for Biden to even get his pick through, and even like a Democrat at all, because the Republicans are just going to, they got bigger balls than the Democrats do when it comes to getting what they want and acting stubborn as hell, even when there's no logic to it, like they did with Obama. So if there's a policy that Biden wants and he doesn't have the Senate and the House in this pocket, in other words, if they're not Democrats, which we know is not going to happen, right? There's no way he generates that much excitement. So it's going to be either the Senate is Republican still, or the House flips again back to the Republican, or in the weird off chance that a lot of Republicans vote for Biden in the general, you end up with a House that's Republican and a Senate that's Republican. So in order to get your Democrat through or a Supreme Court justice through, you're going to have to do one of two things. You're going to sacrifice policy to get your justice, or you're going to sacrifice a justice to get whatever neoliberal policy you're being paid to push. And TPP is not off the table. I know it hasn't been brought up by the corporate media, but that's only because people forget Trump was the reason that TPP was even being discussed to begin with, because he railed against Obama in the debates about using TPP. And so it came up. Now, it could end up being a topic of discussion again, or another similar policy where Biden will have to make a compromise somewhere. And that compromise will likely be a Supreme Court justice, in my opinion.
See, I think you hit on one issue there where Trump is actually better than Biden, which is TPP, because Biden was a fierce advocate. He was out there nonstop pushing TPP to the point where it's clear he favors it. And, Biden has a terrible record. I mean, supporting NAFTA, supporting a variety of outsourcing deals, supporting the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which repealed Glass-Steagall, which led to the crash in 2008 and 2009. I mean, I can go on and on here. Iraq war vote. Like, there's a lot of terrible stuff in there.
Ukraine, Burisma, like literally.
Corruption, just like overall super corrupt. So like there are areas like TPP and even I would say North Korea where I think Trump is better than Biden. I think that even on issues like the First Step Act and pardoning Alice Johnson, I think that Trump ultimately got more done on that front than Biden could ever get done on that front. But my disagreement with you, I think, is I do think that whoever he would pick for the Supreme Court would be like Merrick Garland, would be a corporate centrist who the Republicans would be okay with because the dude is going to be a total sellout to corporations, but they would sacrifice on the social issues where the person's not going to, knock down Roe versus Wade, kill affirmative action, or whatever the hell it may be. So, and another area where I think Biden would probably be better is climate change. I don't think he would have pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. I think he would get back in the Paris Climate Agreement. So there are issues where Biden is better than Trump, and there are issues where Trump is better than Biden. But my overall point is, they're both beyond the pale because I have minimum standards and neither one of them meets those minimum standards. So so my point is here, I could even concede to the annoying people on Twitter, like the Mehdi Hasan and the blue check crowd. I could even concede to them, like, sure, you want to say he's slightly better than Trump? Fine. But that's irrelevant because I have minimum standards and he doesn't meet those minimum standards. So fact of the matter is they're both beyond the pale. And that's something that he can't grasp and these people can't deal with is that, and they always fall back into just straw manning me and saying stuff like, oh, you're saying that they're the same. It's like, actually, no, I didn't say that. I said they're both beyond the pale. If you want to have a very detailed conversation about the exact policy areas where they differ, where Biden is better, where Trump is better, we could have that conversation, but they don't care about the nuance. They don't care about the details. They don't care about the argument that I'm putting forth. They just want to tell me like, oh, you're de facto supporting Trump and you're saying they're both the same and you're not a lefty for reasons X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh, yeah. Please, you're ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. It's annoying, I think, at this point more than anything else, because we're not going to change each other's minds. But I guess they believe that if they engage with us, that like I don't know what they think is going to happen, but it's not going to change any. I feel like for the people who are paying attention, most people have made up their mind. You need to go get those independents and convince them of your bullshit, not me, not Kyle Kulinski. I want to go back. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick that they're actually like Noam Chomsky and Mehdi Hasan and all these people who are doing what they're doing. I think that they're actually creating more non-voters and third-party voters because they think like, oh, if I go out there and I like, go after people like Kyle, I'm going to create more Biden voters. And it's like, actually, no, you're so annoying and you're so obnoxious and you're so not serious in how you straw man everybody who doesn't agree with you and you shame people that like, no, you're actually going to do the opposite. You're going to create more non-voters and third-party voters.
Yeah, 100%. And I've been seeing it too, honestly. Now, I do want to go back really quick to the election integrity conversation because I feel like, so with Bernie and Biden, there was this, I don't know, that the coalescing of that campaign or of the other campaigns behind Biden was also particularly nefarious for reasons that people don't talk about regarding the early fucking vote and the mail-in vote. That is where we all got screwed because the day before Super Tuesday, they all go behind Biden knowing full hot damn well that a lot of their votes had already been counted. If you like Minnesota's primary, California primary, where you can mail in like a month in advance. What's another one? Vermont, Maine, even a lot of these states, like Minnesota, where Bernie needed a win. Absolutely. I'm sure like the Klobuchar crowd was like probably mixed between Bernie and Klobuchar. I mean, if 2016 was any indication of how much support Bernie has in Minnesota. But instead, much of the vote that went to Klobuchar went to her before Super Tuesday even came. And they knew that. So they achieved the ability to take votes away from Bernie in those key states, which I had always said, by the way, was the ultimate goal for the DNC, which is why they ran so many key candidates in states where Bernie was picked to win. Whether you're looking at Texas, because he was supposed to just destroy everybody in Texas. And then once again, right at the end, somehow after the metropolitan areas were counted, and those are the areas that were experiencing the most voter suppression, Biden comes back from behind. I don't know if you were watching live, but did you see how many states were pegged to go to Bernie before, like halfway through, and then towards the end, out of nowhere, Biden. And then if you were looking at the next few days, states were turning from Bernie, as far as the delegate count was concerned, to Biden. It was disgusting to see. And once again, I wouldn't be as inclined to believe, or at least I would be more inclined to exercise greater skepticism if at some point we caught the break. But it never ends up being that. So what do you think about the whole early voting situation that didn't get talked about that much?
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point, and I think that we really just need to totally change how we do elections, because the way we do it is just so outdated and so silly and so dumb, and even the fact that every state has their own thing going on where the rules aren't uniform across every state, and like, to the point that you were making about the coalescing, like, we have to bring up Obama and what he did in this whole thing, because let me tell you something, that's another reason why it's really hard for people like me to get behind somebody like Biden, is because you're telling me Bernie basically won the first 3 states, okay? He definitely won the popular vote in the first 3 states. And then you're telling me that just before Super Tuesday, the former president connects all the dots, makes all the phone calls, gets everything in a row, gets everything in order to back Biden. And then, like, they have the nerve to turn around to us after the fact and act like they'll Bernie and people into, the party and into the campaign. And it's like, you guys just did everything you possibly could to screw over these people. And you don't care about us. You don't like us. You don't agree with us on anything. And it's just like, they're slapping you in the face and then telling you, like, you're going to vote for us still, right? And it's like, no.
Oh, and then they try to shame us after, like, bro, don't smack me in the face and then come and ask me for $1, bro. Like, what? Are you kidding me? And what's so bad is the just overt nature of their hypocrisy and them trying to screw us over. Like, if we did that to them and then asked for their votes, listen, Oh, matter of fact, I'm glad we can bring this up because this actually fits the conversation. But Kyle, bro, we gotta talk, man. So Elizabeth Warren, man, what's going on, bro? That's your girl, dog. That's your girl. Kyle, what happened, man? She tried to throw Bernie's legacy. She ain't just try to throw him under the bus. She tried to throw his legacy under the bus.
Yeah. You know what's crazy?
What's up?
Well, what's crazy is that like Trump is not wrong whenever he like chimes in and like messes with the Democrats, and he's like Elizabeth Warren didn't drop out, and because she didn't drop out, Crazy Bernie didn't win all these states, but he would have won these states if she dropped out. And I always read those tweets, and I'm like, damn, he has to just like rub salt in the wound and just be like, I'm gonna say something true real quick to like get everybody riled up. And we know why he's doing it. He's doing it to divide and conquer and he's doing it for himself. But that doesn't mean he's wrong though. Like he's still right when he says that stuff. So
the most effective campaign strategy in politics today. And it's crazy because I feel like Bernie for some reason still hasn't figured it out, although others have, like Bree, like Nina, Zephyr Teachout, Bree, Trump to a degree. The most effective political strategy is to tell the truth. Tell the truth 50% of the time. That's like what? 50% more than the average politician, right? And people will eat up everything else you say. And they have not figured that out yet in the Democratic Party. Like Trump will straight up call out his own Republicans. When do you see another Democrat doing that? By name, tagging them on Twitter. Yeah. Look at what he did to Bolton. Look at what he does to those who oppose him on Twitter. He will call out Congress people. He will call out governors. He don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Now, if you kiss his ass, he'll embrace you publicly.
And they fall in line. And that's the thing. Like, that's why I've always said that Bernie needs a little bit of Trump in him, because like he should have used his power, used his sway, used the leverage of his movement to get extractions from the Democrats, to get extractions from Joe Biden. I mean, could you imagine a situation where somebody who's actually on the left knew how to use the bully pulpit in the way that Trump does? Because that's exactly what we want. That's exactly what everybody has been hoping for. And it's just so sad that it comes in the form of that dude who really, like, Trump doesn't have any real ideology. You know, he's just like a reality star and he's a narcissist, and that's pretty much it. But it's like, could you imagine if that political tool was used for the right things? It'd be incredible. And you named a few people there who know the deal, like Nina Turner and Bree. Like, I feel so bad because the people who are the most right get the most crap. And I see it all the time on Twitter, like how vicious they are when they come after them.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because me and Nina talked about that when I interviewed her, about like the hypocrisy from the Democrats regarding black women specifically. If you're a neoliberal black woman or a black person in general, you can't be touched. They will, like Bree talked about, I still remember she was talking about how Medicare for All would help make sure that more people could be treated for cancer for free. And people were like, who was it, Kamala's mom or something like that, died of cancer. I'm like, they're like, how dare you? You're disgusting. You need to be fine. I'm like, hold up, well, wait a minute. What? How the fuck did you even come to that conclusion? Because Kamala said something about healthcare, and Bree said something that was factually correct. Somehow this is, how dare you make fun of Kamala's mom for dying of cancer?
Kamala said all COVID-19 treatment should be free. And then Bree responded with the very obvious and correct point, like, why shouldn't cancer treatment be free? Why shouldn't heart disease treatment be free? Why shouldn't stroke or other illnesses, other viruses, why shouldn't that be free? And then people, exactly like you're describing, people then flipped on her and said, like, how dare you bring up cancer because Kamala's mom died of cancer? And it's like, are you not understanding that the point that Bree is making is that let's protect every one of Kamala's moms around the world, everybody with cancer in the U.S., like, protect all of them, have all of their treatment paid for. But it's not about the facts and it's not about the issues with these people. They don't like people like Bree and Nina who tell the truth. And so they're just vicious and they smear them relentlessly and they don't care about the consequences.
And I would say that there's even a special exception for people of color and black people who tell the truth. Because, I mean, look at the way they treated Nina at the Democratic National Convention in 2016. There was no way in hell they were going to let an outspoken black woman go on that stage and kill the narrative that they had set forth that black people at large do not support Bernie Sanders. They had Michelle come out there, of course, and endorse Hillary publicly because they understood the value in that. So if they understood the value in Michelle endorsing Hillary when she did, they absolutely understood the damage that could come to their narrative if they allowed Nina to come up there and just go the fuck off like we know Nina Turnup can do. They can't have that. So I would say that there's almost a special exception for people of color and black people. They will try and crush you in your soul if you try and overstep your boundaries regarding that establishment narrative that they're like putting forward about specific candidates. But I'll say, I just wish if Bernie and Tulsi would have worked together from the beginning, and I'm gonna be honest, I feel like it was Bernie's ego. I feel like Tulsi, knowing Tulsi like I do at this point, if Bernie would have said, look, let's get this done together. I will take your advice where I think it should be taken, and I hope that you will do the same. We can provide counsel to each other, but we have to work together. And on top of that, by the way, I do believe the onus should be put on Bernie for not building a coalition and coalescing the people who had support. Like, you don't have to agree with 100% of what Andrew Yang said. You don't have to agree with 100% of what Marianne Williamson said. But what you cannot deny is whether it be Tulsi, Marianne Williamson, or Andrew Yang, all three of them said that they had been inspired by Bernie, which means they would have all coalesced around him if he extended that olive branch out in a genuine way. But it seems like he was too busy taking advice from people who don't understand politics, especially progressive politics. At least maybe what they understood strategically would have flown in the 90s and even the early 2000s. But this is a different world. And taking advice from people like Jeff Weaver is not going to make it, to make it happen as far as trying to coalesce and bring people together, especially that independent base which you need in order to win a primary and a general election. But he didn't do that. And I think that now we're feeling the flames from it. And that's also why the left might be so splintered at this moment. What do you think?
So I think it's interesting because there was some reporting. It was either in the New York Times or Washington Post after the race was basically over, and they said to some extent Bernie reached out to almost everybody you listed there, Andrew Yang and even Tom Steyer they brought up, and Marianne Williamson. They didn't mention Tulsi, but I read that and then I thought, no, I don't think he reached out to them, or if he did reach out to them, he didn't really reach out to them in the way that you're supposed to if you're playing backroom politics correctly. And I think that I do put the onus on Bernie, and I do put the onus on his campaign, and I do think they messed up, because I guarantee you something right now, Niko. You know what was probably given in order to make Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar drop out and endorse Biden?
Cabinet positions.
I guarantee you it's big. In fact, I think Amy Klobuchar is one of the two people who's guaranteed to be. It's either Amy Klobuchar or Gretchen Whitmer, I think, for VP. Yeah, I am convinced of that, and I think that they maybe had to give her that in order for her to drop out and back Biden. And I think Mayor Pete was given a cabinet position in order to back Biden. So in other words, my point is, Bernie may have reached out and been like, oh, we'd like your support or whatever. But he did not hit him with let's have a conversation. What do you really
not the real one, not the real conversation. Yeah.
Right. Let's have a conversation. Tell me what you're interested in. We're going to sit on it for a day and I'm going to get back to you. And then you could really literally cut deals and just make it happen and that gets to the main point, which is I think Bernie, and this is a criticism, but at the same time, it's also just what it is. This is just the nature of reality. And I can't hate because I'm the same way in some ways, but he's a one-trick pony. What he does is kind of similar to Trump, in that Trump does his rallies and people love it and he riles people up and he's a messenger. That's what Bernie is. Bernie goes and does his rallies and does his stump speech where he talks about Medicare for all, and he's a one-trick pony and he doesn't have anything outside of that, and that ultimately doomed him because there was a moment in the race where it was all right, man, look, now it's time to pivot. Now it's time to be clever, be intelligent, because now we're in the final half here. And they didn't adjust even 1%. And I know because I know people at the top of that campaign, people at the top of that campaign. And one of the people was asking for advice. I sent them 5. Here's what you say. Here are the talking points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. Sent it to him. 0. Bernie used none of them. And I guarantee you, if the advice that I was given was taken, it definitely would have made some difference. I'm
Hell,
not saying Bernie would have won.
To be honest, there were times where the points that you were making were Bernie's points, but you were getting more retweets than the campaign's Twitter account was on his same points because of the way you presented them and the contrast to the establishment that you would provide. And this was the case. I mean, I would see Crystal Ball do the same thing. I'm like, okay, there's a problem when these pundits and commentators are getting more retweets using your talking points, but just doing it better. Maybe you should try and take someone else's advice other than the people, because it wasn't, let's be honest, right? It was the allure of the 2016 campaign that kind of carried that momentum into 2020. It wasn't that Bernie was doing something better necessarily. In fact, I would say he probably had made a few more missteps in 2020. So instead of capitalizing on that and not getting comfortable and going balls to the wall, they became more conservative in their approach. And that's never, why would you think that would work? Is that what Trump has done? I don't even believe that Trump believes half of the bullshit that comes out of his mouth. And he realized at a very early point in the Republican primary, I can be polite and conservative like the rest of these Republicans, and I would not stand out from them one bit. Or I can be as honest as politics will allow me to be, and show the people that I am different, at least in that regard. And the moment that Bernie Biden is my friend, in my view, he's not corrupt. That's it. You can't. So why would I not vote for the guy that the mainstream media is telling me can win? And then I would also wonder why. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. There was the moment that I was like, oh, this thing is over. He was asked a question about can Biden beat Trump, and he was like, yes, and I was like, oh. So you're going to lose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same thing. I said, why? Why would you? And then what was so bad about it was he went on. So I saw that clip, and it was on the late show or something like that with Stephen Colbert.
Dude, he had been saying it in every single interview. They were throwing the softball down the center of the plate. Every single interview, it was like the first question, softball down the center of the plate. Can Joe Biden beat Donald Trump? Every single time, he didn't skip a beat. He was like, yeah, I think he can beat Trump. I was like, oh.
Do you know how you answer that question, Kyle? You say, "Well, I'm not really worried about whether or not Joe Biden can beat Trump because I believe that we're the best campaign that's best positioned to beat Donald Trump in November, and here are the reasons why." Boom, 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 boom. Go down a list of reasons. Well, but there is a chance that Joe Biden may be. Well, if it's up to me, there is no chance that Joe Biden will be facing Trump. If it's up to the people of this country, there is no chance that Joe Biden will be facing Trump because hopefully, people of this country will choose us in this primary, and we'll be the nominee rather than Joe Biden. We wish him the best of luck, but honestly, I feel like we're best positioned to beat Donald Trump. Like that's it. You don't got to insult Joe Biden if you don't want to, even though I will obviously choose a path to critique him because I feel like that's fair. But you can't just concede and say that there is somebody else who also has, especially when that's your only competition left, that there's somebody else that can beat Donald Trump in the same fashion that you'd be able to. I feel like that's a losing strategy. And I will never understand. Now, I have my issues with Amy Klobuchar. There's a lot of them, a whole lot of them. But you need Minnesota. And more importantly, you need for people to see that you can bring somebody that isn't considered the progressive standard over to your side in any way to get something done when you're a president. Amy Klobuchar is probably his best bet there. They worked on the Medicare for All legislation together. They worked on that pharmaceutical legislation together. They had worked on more legislation together than Warren had worked with Bernie in the Senate. So all you had to do was in advance, when you knew Amy, and right after New Hampshire probably would have been the best time. Oh, she has momentum. So what would it look like if I can convince Amy Klobuchar to switch to my side for a cabinet position?
Yeah. The number one issue in this election was electability. That was in all the polls, the area where Biden was most clearly beating Bernie was electability. And after South Carolina and after Super Tuesday, he was trouncing him. Biden had like 70% on electability, and Bernie was way back there.
Oh yeah, by Super Tuesday. Yeah.
So my whole thing was like, if he's beating you on electability, and that's the reason why these older voters are going for him, you have to go out there and not just say, like, I think I'm more electable. you got to make an argument. You got to make a case. You have to say, let me tell you something. Joe Biden is exactly like Hillary Clinton. And we just ran this experiment in 2016, and Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. You want to run this experiment again? You want to run the uninspiring corporate centrist and see what happens? Please, by all means, go right ahead.
By the way, against a Donald Trump who is more popular now than he was in 2016, which is insane. This is a statistical anomaly, people. I do not know if y'all really understand how ridiculous this is. We're looking at a President Trump right now who went through Russiagate. The entire intelligence community was against you. Then you went through an impeachment where the entire Congress, or at least on the Democrat side, was against you. Then you went through a COVID-19 economic crash, okay? And you were almost walking out not only unscathed, but more popular than you were before. There was a morning consult poll where Joe Biden was only in striking distance because they were going down different categories. He was only in striking distance when it came to foreign policy, and that was it. And that was it. So
it's interesting, though, because, yes, when you look at the polls, this at this point in the 2016 election, Hillary had a bigger lead on Trump than Biden has on Trump right now. So, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was like there was a 9-point lead that Hillary had on Trump at this point in the 2016 election, and Biden's at like 4 or 5. So that's a piece of evidence that should worry, the Democrats, and especially with Biden struggling massively with young voters in a way that's like unbelievable. Like the Obama coalition had a lot to do with young voters. And so for Biden not to have those young voters is something that should scare the hell out of the Democrats. The area now, though, where I'm a little shocked by this, but I think it's true. I think this election is a coin flip, dog, because what's happening with COVID-19, it could go one of two ways. Either people look at the leader in a time of crisis and they're like, okay, we have a strong leader, we got to back our leader. And that's usually what happens in times of crises. Go look back at what happened after 9/11. Like, Bush's approval rating was like 80-something%. It was ridiculous. But the flip side of that is, yes, immediately during a crisis, people will rally behind the leader. But then the more time goes by and the more things don't get better and the higher the unemployment rate is and the more the economy is stagnating and not doing well, at some point, people are like, anything but this, man. And then they'll vote just against the incumbent party. So,
it's funny. The Republicans knew that, so they passed a stimulus package that was actually a good bill like 2 days ago. And Nancy Pelosi tried to block it earlier in the week. And you know what her reason was? The Republicans are trying to pull a political stunt. The stunt was they actually did what we asked them to do for once. That was the stunt. And because they know that if they don't start getting something done, Trump is going to pay the price. And of course, conversely, that means they're going to pay the price. And so they introduced a bill that Nancy Pelosi blocked initially until people started tearing into her for it. And then, of course, the bill passed. And I just found it interesting that the Democrats have not realized yet. Do you know the best way to beat Donald Trump? Be better than him. But the truth is, Trump talked about UBI before the Democrats did. In fact, they were against it because Trump supported it. He asked for the HUD to suspend mortgage payments and evictions before the Democrats had even thought about it. Tulsi had talked about it on Fox News in The Hill, and then he talked about it. But other than that, the Democrats didn't say anything about it. But the way you beat him is to just be better. Do something so radical that you get to say, wow, we're just trying to give y'all some money right now, bro. And the Republicans, led by Trump, won't do it. But they haven't even figured it out yet.
Well, yeah, Trump wanted his name on the checks because he understands the way politics works, and he understands that once people see those checks, they're going to be like, ooh, and it's from Trump too. So he understands that that's politically advantageous. And so Chuck Schumer, of course, just proposed something like, get his name off the checks. And it's like, oh my God, so pathetic. Like, do you not understand how weak that is? Like, instead of doing something on your own, like you do a rent freeze, you do a mortgage freeze, you pass a bill that has universal basic income. Give me something, but no, they don't do that. Instead, they're just trying to block him from putting his name on the checks because they know that that'll be politically advantageous. But the thing that's crazy about Biden in particular, though, is that semi-crushed it in the primary by doing Dickie McGee's act. So if he does absolutely nothing, it'll be curious to see what happens in the general election because listen, if he gets those older suburban voters who are just anti-Trump and all of them turn out, I have no idea what could happen in this election. Like, I am
But what would make
curious.
them all turn out? That's the question.
They did in the primary. All like I don't know what to call these voters. They're like the Applebee's voters or something. They're like you know what I'm saying? Like they're upper middle class white people that have like minivans and like this is and they're just like, I don't like Trump, and they just vote for whoever Democrats and don't think about it and don't care about policy even a little bit. Like if those people see the reason why the election is so interesting to me is because I wouldn't be surprised if it goes in any direction. If it is super close, I'm not surprised. If Trump wins in a landslide, I'm not surprised. If Biden wins in a landslide, I'm not surprised. So that's what makes this so interesting to me, is that it's almost like all of my normal political instincts are just moot when it comes to somebody like Biden and when it comes to somebody like Trump. Like Trump, I see the political appeal because he's really aggressive and like there is no filter and there are no rules. And like when you're the populist outsider and that's how you portray yourself, that has advantages. But in the case of Biden, I don't see it, but it's worked so far. So it's like there's something there. I think it's just a return to normalcy thing for people who just don't like Trump. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man.
I wanna run my conspiracy theory because you gave me one of your conspiracy theories. This is one of my conspiracy theories out here, man. I feel like the only way that it becomes close is if Biden never has to stand on that damn debate stage with Donald Trump, never has to engage him in a 1v1 situation, because that's advantage Trump every single day of the week and every single day of the month. I mean, he's going to tear into the Ukraine gate. He's going to, I mean, good God, it's not going to be pretty. I think we both know that. But as long as the COVID-19 situation remains, then Biden gets a free pass from the debate stage. At least that's how it's looking so far. So now the Democrats have been incentivized to basically drag their heels when it comes to COVID-19. And I've noticed that some so Gavin Newsom is working with the governor of Oregon and the governor of Washington to begin reopening California. Now, that's, I mean, based off of how I've seen people react to Trump even suggesting that next month, I would thought that would be a no-no and that he would get shredded for it. But instead, people are like, that's good that he's working with 3 states, which is a good thing, right? You're going to have to reopen the economy eventually. It's best to do it with other states so you can, because y'all have laws that affect each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there was like not a peep about it. In fact, it was celebrated. But when Trump makes the same suggestion about next month, which is the same suggestion that Gavin Newsom made, he gets like berated for it to the point where, like, I get it, his rhetoric, is like ridiculous a lot of the time. But when he makes simple suggestions, because it's not the rhetoric a lot of times they focus on, it's a suggestion, and they make it seem like he's trying to kill people. And I'm like, so all these Democrat governors suggesting the same thing are all no, but we can't have the economy open. That cannot be the narrative, that it's a possibility for the economy to be open before, 2 or 3 months down the line. We cannot have Trump engage or Biden engage with Trump in any substantive way where people can see all his weaknesses, where Trump can belittle him and berate him in person, where Biden looks like a damn kitten by the end of it. So that's my conspiracy theory, is that the Democrats are actually invested in making sure there is no progress as far as the states reopening, because the moment that happens, then all of a sudden you have no excuse from keeping Biden out of the jaws of Donald Trump. What do you think about that conspiracy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know in terms of like when the states reopen and if they're trying to delay it. I mean, I just don't know. But in terms of Democrats not wanting Joe Biden on the debate stage with Donald Trump, hell yes. Because, I mean, listen, man, like, it's true. Biden is not all there. Like, he's going, gone. Like, he has his good days and he has his bad days, but his brain is not functioning like it did. Even 5 years ago, it's not functioning like it did. So, like, I think
you're a damn aneurysm. Like, and when Bernie got a stent put in his heart, they threw a damn hissy fit.
And that's one of the things, is that apparently one of the long-term implications of that is you could have early onset dementia. So I don't know exactly what's going on with Biden in that sense, but I do think that if it's Trump versus Biden on the debate stage, one-on-one, they're going to have to put Biden full of some sort of drugs in order to get him through that debate. But yeah,
boy,
I think that
you can pop one of these Adderall.
I think Trump would basically eat him alive, man. But, it's interesting, though, even if we just look at Trump, it's interesting when for this campaign, he could go one of 2 ways. And he's actually been open about the fact that he could go one of two different ways. And he's even asked his rally audiences what they think. Should I go this way or should I go this way? And what I mean is there's Make America Great Again, and then there's Keep America Great. There are those two different paths. And like, that's not just a slogan. There's a lot that entails both of those things. So if you go with the Keep America Great argument, then what you're saying to the world is, I already made it great. I'm the boss man, and I won, and I did everything that I wanted to do, and so now we're just coasting. And didn't I do so wonderful, and aren't I the best? That's Keep America Great. Make America Great Again was the outsider argument. So Keep America Great is like, I am the establishment, and I'm running everything. Make America Great Again is like, there's still a corrupt establishment elite, and I'm going to fight them, and I'm the outsider, I'm the populist. And like, I feel like if he chooses the Keep America Great argument, he's screwing himself, and then Biden could definitely win. But if he keeps going with the Make America Great Again argument and portrays himself as like, this little guy outsider and it's him versus the world, and he's a populist brawler, and he brings back those same instincts that helped him versus Hillary, namely when he argued that, hey, she supported NAFTA, she supported the Iraq war, I'm against the outsourcing deals. Like, there's a lot of stuff that could happen if Trump decides to run to Biden's left in terms of his rhetoric. Then I think that Biden's in a lot of trouble, and I do think that Trump would eat him alive in the debates. But
hey, look, Trump already said he supports Medicare for all, and Biden already said he'd veto it. That's already an he's for UBI. Biden's for reopening the marketplace so that people can buy insurance with their non-existent jobs.
Just so everybody knows, you're talking about the COVID-19 thing, like that.
Well,
Trump
yeah,
was
that
like,
too.
Yeah.
But he also, he threatened the Republicans with Medicare for all at some point. So, like, we know that if it went across his desk, like, I can make an argument for keeping Trump in office and just stacking the deck with progressives in the Senate and the House. I think that we could actually get a lot done, to be honest with you.
But see, that's why Trump to me is such a letdown, because he was such a political anomaly in the sense that he really doesn't have an ideology, and he's just like, he's just like a blank canvas, and you could almost put on him whatever with pressure. And like, so I thought that there was a real historic opportunity in that anything could have happened, man. Like you said, on one day he'll wake up and he'll do tax cuts for the rich, and he'll deregulate Wall Street, and he'll increase our wars. And then the next day he'll wake up and be like, I'm canceling TPP. I don't want to do TPP. I want to,
Like he'll assassinate Soleimani and then like wake up, hey, we're out of Afghanistan, everybody. You're welcome. Like, what?
Exactly. No, it makes no sense. Like, you can't make sense of it, but it's like that was an opportunity, because at least there's a question that maybe something wild and good would happen. Right? Like the North Korea thing. Out of nowhere, he's having a meeting with Kim Jong-un, and like he's like, let's have peace. And everybody's like, what? And then all of a sudden the Democrats are like, we hate peace. And you're like, oh, God, you're so stupid.
You know what it looks like, honestly? Have you ever read 48 Laws of Power?
I never have, but it sounds interesting.
Bro, if you read 3 chapters of it, you're going to be like, this man Trump lives and dies by this book. In the first 3 chapters, they talk about misdirection and concealing your intentions by using red herrings. Right? So like, make them be honest, be brutally honest. Like, don't lie, tell the truth, and say all these things. Like, so he can insult Kim in the beginning. Remember, he would insult Kim Jong-un to a degree. He would say, oh, we're ready to go to war with them if we have to. Da, 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 da. And then the day before, he's like, yeah, we're going to meet with Kim Jong-un to try and denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. And oh, by the way, Kim Jong-un just stepped into South Korea for the first time, and the president of South Korea just stepped into North Korea for the first time. And then he has Kim Jong-un and the damn president of South Korea singing his praises when the world was absolutely convinced, especially Democrats, that he was going to start World War III with North Korea. And so what happened was he ended up exposing the Democrats because they weren't expecting it. They weren't expecting it, so they just diametrically changed their position. No, he can't support North Korea. You remember Rachel Maddow's excuse. He's supporting North Korea because it benefits Russia.
Russia, always. It always comes down to Russia with her, 100% of the time. But no, you're right. Like that, you're making a great point. And like, that's the thing about Trump that was interesting, is that he could just throw a curveball at you, and you're just like, whoa, I didn't see that. Like when he pardoned Alice Johnson. I mean, thank Kim Kardashian for that more than anything. But when he pardoned Alice Johnson, I was like, yo, all right. Like, go ahead,
passed the First Step Act by working with he worked with Democrats like Tulsi and a couple of others. I want to say Ro Khanna too. To pass the First Step Act, which alleviated a lot of the factors that were brought about by the 94 crime bill.
But that's why it's upsetting though that in so many ways he's just been a standard Republican president. Like I hated the tax cut bill, 83% of it went to the top 1%. I hated the deregulation and the destroying of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I hated the increase of the wars and the assassination of Soleimani. Like so many things I was like, yo, don't do that.
Oh, he technically, I got corrected the other day. He technically has not brought us into any new wars. He's technically reduced the amount of conflicts, technically speaking. I got corrected the other day on it. So,
but he increased drone strikes by 432%, and that was just in the first year he did that. So who knows how many people he's killing now?
And continuing Obama's horrid immigration policies.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's a weird situation, but you never know what the hell you're going to get with Trump. But in the case of Biden,
we know exactly what we're going to get.
Yeah, it'll be just like Hillary would have been. It'll be standard neoliberal nonsense. So
it could be potentially worse than what Hillary, because what Biden actually could be, because remember he was very clear. He didn't even say he was going to change the bad things we don't like about Trump. What he was very clear about was, under me nothing will change. We're going to maintain
will fundamentally change, he told rich donors.
And I'm thinking to myself, hold up, the worst policies from Trump are also Obama's policies for the most part. Maybe with a variance on some climate change stuff, but for the most part, it's just as bad. So you're not going to change any of this?
Taxes, Obama was a little bit better on taxes than Trump, and he was a little better on Cuba.
Well, so here's the thing. So here's the thing about Trump and Obama when it comes to taxes, and I feel like this should be talked about a little bit more. That's actually Congress. Now, Trump can propose something, but like how much is Trump actually proposing? But what he can't do is vote against his corporate buddies. He can't vote against those Republicans who are propping him up in Congress and the Senate. And I think that's where he fell short, right? Where you didn't push back enough. Yeah,
he just did Paul Ryan, whatever the hell Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell wanted to do, and Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell want to do standard Republican stuff. All right, I guess. So. But you're right. I mean, in the case of Biden, so Obama, for example, that top tax rate he raised, but of course it's typical Obama, so it went from 35% to 40% or something for the top marginal tax rate, a very incremental, tiny change for the top tax rate. And it's and then Trump gets in there and he cuts it, I think, a little more than George W. Bush did, so it might be about 35% now, that top marginal rate. And but it may even be 30%. But anyway, with Biden, it's not even I think he would increase that. I think he'd just keep it like it is.
Yeah, I do. I really believe that.
So even the little things, it's what are you gonna give me, man? You're gonna give me nothing? Really? Nothing?
Yeah.
The only argument
I'd rather have a wire card.
The only thing is I'll give you a slightly less shitty Supreme Court justice. Wow.
Maybe. But
maybe.
One that I picked, so if anything does come up the pipeline where I could be held accountable or my buddies can be held accountable, I know where that vote is going. So there's that problem because this is something that I actually look into a lot because the DNC fraud lawsuit right now is at the Supreme Court. We're waiting for a response on an amendment to a complaint, and then it goes back down to the 11th Circuit Court because we won 2 arguments. We're waiting to hear about our 3rd argument. And so if we win all 3 of those arguments in the appeals court, we go back to the discovery phase, which will inevitably end up back on the Supreme Court because even if we win, they will appeal it until they get to the Supreme Court. But if it's one of Biden's judges or 2 of Biden's justices, then that case is not being, we're not going to win. It's a game. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're saying that a lawsuit against the DNC has a better chance of proceeding with Republican judges than it does with Democratic judges.
Yeah, even in the current climate where it's kind of split right now because they haven't gotten another one through, right? Is it split right now? I thought it was split.
Oh, you're talking about the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Oh, the Supreme Court leans conservative.
So it's leaning conservative right now.
Yeah,
it leans conservative. Did somebody? I can't remember. Did somebody replace Kennedy already?
Well, let's look it up.
I remember Kavanaugh was the pick that Obama was originally supposed to have. And then Kennedy stepped down. And he got no shit for it, by the way, which is weird considering how big of a deal the Democrats made Supreme Court. But go ahead.
We got John Roberts as the Chief Justice. Then we got Clarence Thomas, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Stephen Breyer, Samuel Alito, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Neil Gorsuch. And wait, is there?
That's 8?
Is that all of them? Hold on.
So they are
missing.
I think
I'm missing one. Hold on. Let me give it to you. Hold on. Sam Alito, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, of course.
Oh, Kavanaugh. So
Yeah,
this,
so it
okay,
means
so it's
conservative. So
conservative
we
right
got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 conservative. 5 conservative, 4
and then
like
Ruth Bader
centrist team.
Ginsburg is about to be done.
And I'm
She been
surprised
done.
she was done in like 2007, and then somehow she's still around.
Man, that's because their staff does most of the difficult work. Let's be honest. They don't even
I
really
know,
type
but
up their own opinions.
she had pancreatic cancer like back in the day, and the survival rate for pancreatic cancer is like absurdly low. But
Bruh,
she's
she
somehow
about it.
still alive.
She a machine, dog. Man,
No,
I don't know what. I
not-
feel like these powerful positions keep people alive sometimes.
I was just gonna say, low key, like all the conspiracies about like adrenochrome and like all these things that like they're drinking the blood of babies in like goblets. Like that stuff has to be true because how the
Bruh.
hell is she still alive?
Dog, the Queen of England's like 103 or some shit like that. just trolling around like what? I'm like, how? Bro, she is so old that her kids that are supposed to take her spot is like 85 now or something like
what?
that.
That's insane.
Bro, it's insane. It's like she's like 83, 85. It's like ridiculous. I'm like, bro, that's not normal. That's not okay. So, but yeah. So I got one more thing. I'm gonna let you go. I do gotta ask you though, because it's been a hot topic of discussion lately. I want to know, to whatever degree you can talk about being a founder of Justice Democrat, or co-founder of Justice Democrats. What's your read on AOC lately, man? What's going on? I feel like there's a lot of up and down, and sometimes she votes in the right direction, or sometimes she says the right things, but her vote doesn't match, or she talks about a policy, but then doesn't introduce it, nor talk about the people who do introduce them. What's your read there?
I mean, I think that AOC and pretty much all the Justice Democrats, they're like, minor differences between the different Justice Democrats, but I think she means well, but Washington has a way of beating you down and kind of making it so that sometimes things that are obvious to you and me, they're not so obvious once you're in the belly of the beast. And, we saw that remember when Ilhan Omar, when there was the smear campaign against Ilhan Omar and they were calling her anti-Semitic and everything, and AOC, instead of doing like a full-throated defense of Ilhan, was like, we need to hear people's voices.
And waited for 24 hours before she even said that.
See, this is what I'm saying is like, and this is a concern that I have, not just with AOC, but for the left in general, that there is this thing where people are hesitant to call BS when they use logic of identity politics against you. Like, if they could easily divide and conquer the left just by mucking up some BS identity thing and just, like, accusing somebody of it, and then, boom, watch the left just implode and fight each other. And, like, that's a perfect example of it right there. You're accusing Ilhan Omar of being a bigot and being an anti-Semite, and, like, obviously AOC knows that Ilhan Omar is not a bigot and not an anti-Semite, but you're going to give, like, a middle-of-the-ground, like, weaselly, wishy-washy response, and it's like, that's unacceptable. In the same way that it's unacceptable that, what did she say? Like, Nancy Pelosi's like the mama bear.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you just complained about this woman for a year.
The nicest interpretation I could possibly give to AOC on that is she thinks I'm clever and I'm intelligent, so I am gonna play the inside game and beat Nancy Pelosi at the inside game by sucking up to her and close to her and then extracting concessions. But what I would say to her on that front is the left never wins by playing the inside game, ever.
You're correct.
We only ever win by playing the outside game and leveraging the power of people, leveraging the power of movements to make Nancy Pelosi and make all the leadership in the Democrat and Republican parties bend the knee to the will of the people, to the point where they need to feel like, and this has been written about historically, that you had presidents, when there were massive protests in Washington, D.C., you had presidents look out the window and say, I hope those people don't storm in here and kill us. So they literally had to fear for their safety to get some of the most basic things implemented that were positive changes in this country. And it's like, we need to embrace that outsider mentality. And if you go to Washington as an outsider, you have to stay 100% an outsider, because the second you flirt with that insider game, Washington will beat you down, and you think you might be able to outsmart Nancy Pelosi or whatever. But no, the world that she lives in and the world that she thrives in is cutting those insider backroom deals where they do the legislation with the Republicans and we end up with rank corporatism at the end of the day. You're never going to outmaneuver Nancy Pelosi from the inside. You have to stay an outsider and use the bully pulpit, use the power of the people. There's a reason why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Justice Democrats, relatively speaking, they have giant like social medias compared to the other, Congress people who got there and did not ride a wave of populism in the people. So like you have to use that and totally abandon the strategy of like, oh, I'll be an insider and I'll get cuddly with them, but I'll still fight for the right things. No, because eventually Washington beats everybody down and you don't even realize it, but you wake up one day and you compromised on way too many of your values. So while I think she means well, there's been a lot of things that are questionable, and I hope that those are fixed.
So I would agree with that. I would say that you cannot try to play an inside, like that's their game. That's not, and that's also not what got you there, right? If that could, if you wanted to play the inside game, you could have just ran as a Warren quote unquote Democrat and tried to win based off of that, and then carried on that legacy through Congress. But that's not what got them there. But I would say that my issue with AOC is I'm a big proponent of looking at how you treat the people you call friends or family, and that's how I determine your intentions. And that's how I kind of look. That's the lens I look through when I'm trying to understand why you're doing what you do. So, or what you may do in the future. So when I saw AOC be silent with Elon for far too long, that was bothersome to me. And then for Bernie, the person who supposedly inspired her, the person who supposedly, she believed in, she endorsed at the time, when he got dragged by Warren with all out lies, Elon came to his defense. Rashida came to his defense. The AOC said nothing. And in fact, she was caught liking tweets that were defending Warren, right? When Elon introduces legislation, most often AOC won't talk about it or won't co-sponsor, but she'll talk about legislation introduced by like Kamala, for example, or Kirsten Gillibrand, for another example. And then when you talk about UBI, and Tulsi actually introduced UBI legislation, she says we need a UBI, doesn't say anything about it. Okay, cool. Maybe you and Tulsi don't like each other for whatever reason. So why didn't you say anything when Rashida Tlaib introduced it? And you were saying that we need it. Okay, well, maybe you and Rashida Tlaib are having some type of falling out. Well, shit, Ro Khanna's about as big of a compromise as progressives are going to get. So why not say anything when he introduces it? Okay, so nothing. All right. So now I got to begin to question, when you're asking for certain things, you don't sponsor legislation yourself for these issues or for these policies, and then you won't even support or talk about the people or the Congress people pushing forth these revolutionary ideas that you say you stand for. So it's the inconsistency when you're grandstanding and you have all those cameras on you and you could have used 5 seconds. Why don't we support legislation like the one my friend Rashida Tlaib or Representative Tlaib introduced? If we're going to give, take revolutionary action for corporations, why not do the same for the people, or are the people not worth as much? Something to that extent. When you don't use that bully pulpit, as you like to say, to even support the people in the legislation that you say you support, then I got to start questioning your motives or your intentionality. What do you have to say about that?
So is that true that she hasn't even co-sponsored any of the legislation, any of the UBI bills?
I have to re-verify the Ro Khanna one because she might have, it got passed, so she might have sensed it in the last moment to change it. But I remember when he initially introduced it with Tim Ryan, she had not co-sponsored it. Elon's co-sponsored Tulsi's legislation. However, AOC did not. She did not co-sponsor Rashida Tlaib's legislation at that time either. Pramila Jayapal did, though. They worked together on it. So it was, we were watching pretty closely. It was problematic.
Yeah, I mean, all I'll say, I'd actually be surprised if she didn't eventually sign on to one of those bills, because her issue is not like, if you're proposing a good policy, or she'll be there, like she'll vote on the right side of these issues. So that's not what I'm concerned about. Or what I'm concerned about is the overall philosophy of how you enact change. And I do think that in her mind, she thinks like, I'll make a deal with the devil, but I'll ultimately be more intelligent and outsmart them and do the right thing from inside. And it's like, no, you can't do that. And even just being too comfy with the celebrity angle of it. Like, don't.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Working with CAA, when I found out, I ain't gonna lie, bro, I was kind of like, dog, this is the same CAA. I mean, damn what they tried to do to Tulsi. Like, they got caught up in that WikiLeaks email. But like, beyond that, they were under the magnifying glass for prostituting their women that belong to that talent agency. Like Alyssa Milano's co-star in what's that? Charm.
Rose McGowan.
Yeah, like she was big on exposing that.
Let me tell you something. She's had an awakening recently because I see every now and then she's liking my tweets about stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, so somebody's turning left.
Hey, well, I mean, I feel like people are more comfortable calling out these things, and it's because of the environment that I feel like we kind of set in the independent media world, where we can talk about these things, criticize Harvey Weinstein, and they know we're not Republican, they know we're not conservative. We're just keeping it a ban because somebody has to. Somebody has to speak up for these damn women that are, I would, if I was a woman right now, man, I'd be terrified to come public if I was assaulted by a man in power. Good God. Like, look at the way Tara Reid has been treated. Like, basically, they're like, bro, we can even have credible evidence. And you still might, and that man still might be the damn president or Democratic nominee or Republican nominee one day. That's terrifying.
It's amazing how quickly the whole Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, it just imploded. It just imploded like because under the weight of its own hypocrisy. It was like, we can't believe all women, we care deeply about these issues. It's like, all right, well, we got somebody here who's talking about Joe Biden and has evidence of it, and it's like, anyway, what happened was...
what had happened was... And look, AOC, and I want to read these super chats too before we go, but AOC, man, she literally put out a tweet, and I covered it. I was joking around saying, man, at times like these, whenever I see so much hypocrisy, I look at our great contemporary progressive philosophers, and I look at a tweet from AOC in 2018 saying, if you don't believe women all the time, and this is regarding Brett Kavanaugh, then we're going to primary you and beat you, basically. Like by the standard that the Me Too movement had set at that time for Republicans. Now, of course, we all knew, because we talked about it briefly, it was about Republicans. It was about making sure that they destroyed Kavanaugh because he was attached to Trump and the Republicans at all costs. Now, there was a lot of actually legitimate things to make sure Kavanaugh didn't get, or a lot of legitimate reasons for Kavanaugh not to get selected to that bench. Patriot Act, overstepping his boundaries when we're talking about spying. He basically legalized it. Things like that, but they went for the low-hanging fruit and tried to destroy him, and then we're like, okay, cool. So keep that same energy. Biden's right here in front of you. Well, we got to support the Democratic nominee. Wait, that's not what you told me 2 years ago. So, like, hold up, no. I gotta call my mama real quick. I feel like this might be one of them situations where we like it. It's disgusting to see, because I think about my little sisters. I think about my wife, who has to, at some point work for a guy usually, like the things that they've been through. Like it's disgusting to know that you can do everything right and still be crushed the moment you step on the right person in power if you're a woman. And while they basically I won't say ridicule, but they take advantage of your narrative, they take advantage of your plight for their own personal benefit. But the moment that you are actually experiencing that plight, they like, no, you're coming at one of ours now. That doesn't count. It's nonsense. Let me read these super chats real quick so we can get you up out of here. Glory Jones, thank you very much for the super chat. Can't forget the 300 million in LA that magically resulted in some of the worst elections ever. And also free Julian Assange. 100%. She's referring to there was 300 million allocated to elections in LA, but it blew up. It burnt like a fire, and then it was worse. The results were worse. People were more confused by the end of it. Thank you, Glory, for that super chat. Big Irv Express, what's going on, my man? Please talk about Jesse Ventura and the Green Party. Jesse Ventura might be going to the Green Party, and that's a different conversation for a different day. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to weigh in on that real quick. The Green Party has a candidate already, and it's Howie Hawkins. He's their candidate. So
they haven't nominated him yet, though.
Oh, they haven't nominated him yet. Okay.
No, bro, that's some drama there, bro. There's some drama there. The Green Party is basically stacking the deck in favor of Howie and against there's two candidates left. One with a legitimate chance of winning, who's Dario right now, who's actually really good and can beat Howie if given a fair opportunity. But they're pretending as if he is a nominee. Yes, I agree.
Okay. So I know that Jesse Ventura sent a letter where he was inquiring about maybe being the Green Party nominee and that he's considering running right now. All I know is that there's been nothing official on that front yet, but if and when he makes it official, there will be a lot to talk about when it comes to Jesse Ventura. Yeah,
and especially when you talk about the fact that he's actually, at least he used to be, we don't know now, but he used to be friends with Trump, at least on a conversational, like collegial type of thing. But if he can somehow convince Trump to fight to get them on the debate stage, bro, that does not hurt Trump. It hurts Biden.
Well, they're already blaming Jesse Ventura for if Trump gets reelected. I've already seen the tweets that are like, "Oh, so you don't want Trump to get reelected, huh?"
Oh well, okay. Well, you shouldn't have fucked us over. That's all I gotta say about that. Reeve Baker, Barker, excuse me. Thanks for the super chat. Fix the lag. Kyle, how are the JDs doing the hostile takeover by supporting the very leadership they were elected to oppose? Well, I think he already answered that question.
And also I'll say this, like, first of all, I'm not affiliated with the organization anymore, so anybody who wants to like blame me for stuff that these people are doing, I got nothing to do with these people, and I've disagreed with them openly 1,000 times over. So that's.
And I also should say that since Kyle left, there was clearly a turn in the overall organization's goals. So let me just say that as an outside viewer, it's very critical. So.
They didn't even endorse Bernie until a hot minute into the election, where I was like,
what? I didn't know that.
What are you doing? So, like, there's been massive disagreements, but it's just, bottom line is, it's not my organization anymore. So people can't, like, you know, be like, oh, you know, what do you think about this, this, and this? Because it's like, it's not my organization. I don't know what you want me to do. I'll critique them. I'll say where I think they're wrong, but I'm just not in leadership anymore. That's the first point. And the second point that I want to make real quick is, because one of the snarky talking points that you get from people who, you know, think, oh, there's no way that the Democrats will ever be steered in the right direction or whatever. They'll say stuff like, oh, how's that going? How's the takeover of the party going? And my response to that is always like, how's the third party going? How's the third party route going? How's the Green Party doing right now? How's the independent movement doing right now? How's the People's Party movement doing right now? People, do you guys have elected?
Yeah, I mean, technically you got 4 up. You got 4 or 5 up on them. I ain't gonna lie.
and I will say this. I will say this too, because that's not me trying to be combative. Because I voted for the Green Party in 2016, and I'll probably vote third party this election too. So I'm not trying to be combative or anything. And if they put a good candidate in front of me, whoever it may be, I don't care if it's an independent, I don't care if it's Green Party, I don't care if it's a new party, I don't care if it's People's Party, whatever. Put somebody in front of me I like, and I'll vote for them. But my point is, don't get into this weird divide and conquer on the actual left, because we have enough enemies as it is. We got the Republican Party as our enemy, the Democratic Party leadership is our enemy, the corporate Democrats are our enemy. We don't need to actually divide the people who we actually agree with. Like, I'm not going to fight other lefties who I know I agree with on stuff over like stupid little tactical differences and all of a sudden make people my enemy. And unfortunately, I think very often people are willing to have those inter-left-wing fights where it's like, why are we wasting our time and why are we being like this with each other? There's no reason to be like that.
Like what we saw in the beginning of the election, where people just thought, well, let me just go on an all-out onslaught against Tulsi because that will definitely help the left. And it was like
treating her as if she's like Hillary or something. It's like, what are you?
Yep. So let me go ahead and get through the rest of these super chats. American Samurai. Question for Niko and Kyle. If you were the leader of the progressive movement, what would your strategy be moving forward? I don't know what IOT means. Achieve political power. Oh, in order to achieve political power. Hint, election integrity, fundraising machine, media counter to MSM. I mean, I feel like you covered it, but I'll let Kyle, what would you do, man?
I just want direct action. I just want to get bodies in the street on specific issues. Like, one of the things that I've been talking about more recently is a direct democracy law. Like, I think it'd be amazing. When you go vote in state elections, in most states in this country, sometimes you get to vote on a direct issue that affects the state. Like, one I had in New York recently was, one of the ones I had in New York recently was, do you want to approve the building of casinos in upstate New York? I'm pro-casino, I'm pro-gambling. I'm like, sure, why not? So I voted yes on that. How amazing would it be if we could go vote, and one of the things is like, should we legalize weed? Should we raise weight? Because that's going to go around the corruption of Congress. And I think it's a great idea, and I think we should push for that.
Man, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's like one of the main things that I talk about. I'm like, we need to start being issue focused more than personality focused. And I believe that the entire left, of course the right too, a lot of them got the Trump syndrome, but the left as well, we became a little bit too personality focused as a unit. And because of that, I think people just kind of forgot that there are other ways to kind of circumvent the government. You can introduce ballot initiatives like what Kyle talked about. We also can talk about voting machines and election integrity issues when we see them. At this point, the Democrats have a responsibility to prove to me that they're innocent. I'm not going to assume that they're innocent at all anymore. So, and I feel like we the people have that right. That's one way. Not only that, but subscribing to your various third parties, but not just doing that, but being that vehicle of change where like, damn, the candidates are important, but if you are not working to get on the ballot permanently, if you are not working to allow for your, there are different things that, because every state has their different rules, but basically you need to ensure that every situation where Democrats are treated one way and Republicans are treated one way, your third party candidates are treated the same way. You need to start talking about, if I was any third party, I'm starting today about getting on the debate stage, fighting to get on the debate stage for 2024. That has to start today, because Jill Stein and Gary Johnson's suit was thrown out because the courts believed it was a political ploy. If this is important to you, why didn't you start it before the election? Why didn't the party start it before the nominee had been picked, et cetera, et cetera? They believed it was grandstanding, and they may have an argument there. Whether or not they should be included is different than them having a legitimate argument that's political grandstanding. So, and we have to make as much of an effort as possible to return to the days of old, because back in the day, not even 30 or 40 years ago, if you had a certain percentage of the vote, and if you had a certain amount of registered members in your party, then you could be on that debate stage, even if you were a third party. But it's not that. It's the polling now, which we know is 4.8%, 5%. The polls have been heavily unreliable. So you have to challenge now. Don't try to challenge later. And if you focus on the personality first, if that personality is not systemically challenging the system and galvanizing people to challenge them at a state level and a federal level, then you're never really going to see that change that I think we need going forward. So Life of Brian, thank you very much for the super chat. Next time you debate Supreme Court with, I didn't debate the progressive voice, I debated the new progressive voice. If I debated the progressive voice, that wouldn't really be a debate. So anyway, or anyone, remember that while the conservatives blew Citizens United, the liberal majority blew Kilo, New London, and eminent domain abuses. I did not know that. I just learned something new. Thank you very much for that. American Samurai, thank you once again. Also, are you too willing to have all indie media people come together to figure out a strategy to counter MSM? I would be willing to do that. Kyle, would you be willing to do that?
I don't think it's ever going to happen, because
I agree, but I'd be willing to.
I don't think it's ever going to happen, because there's too many, like what I was just talking about before. There's so much fighting that goes on, like in between the different people, and also when you run things independently, you have direct control over what you do, what you say, and everything. But once you get into alliances, it just becomes more of a headache, and then you're blamed for stuff other people said, and you're all under one banner, and like then.
Sound like you're speaking for some personal experience here, Kyle. Sound like you're.
Well, there has to be conversations about like what rules there are, and it's just like nobody wants to deal with that. Like I think everybody knows where to find all of us, and I wish everybody the best of luck. And let's just do our thing the way we're doing it. But that's a lot of people, like what's his name from Current Affairs, Nathan J. Robinson was like. He was talking about that a lot recently. Like, he was like, oh, I want to get an actual alternative to MSNBC that's a real left-wing network, and I want to work on that. And he was, like, trying to, like, raise money for it or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think that there's a reason why independent media is independent, because we're all independent. We're not, like, under a particular banner. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And now if we get a platform, so on Rockfin, they're creating a co-op scenario, and they got the idea from my network where they post on the network, right? The network channel, and you get updated about anything happening. Like if you subscribe to MSNBC, you would get updates from all their stuff. It's the same thing. And then they would be paid based off of their viewership, right? The total viewership of the network, and then their individual contributions to that viewership. Like that's like the best example I can think of where that might be possible. But even still, you do run there. Now, Kyle, why would you say that you would be blamed for something that somebody else, some other network would say, Kyle? I don't understand. That's never happened to you. That never happened to you, Kyle.
Yeah, it's funny because people, like with TYT, people think like, oh, what do you think about this, bro? And it's like, I don't fucking know. It's not. First of all, the idea that like I would hold back with any kind of criticism. Everybody knows me. Everybody knows I don't hold back on criticism. Like, and I'll tell the people directly. Like, if I think Jenk says something that's not good, I'll be like, yo, this was dumb. Like, why'd
Yo,
you
I
say
saw
this?
you literally call out Cenk on Twitter, like straight up on Twitter.
Yeah,
And the time I saw it, it wasn't nice either, to be honest with you.
but like everybody knows me. Nobody takes it personally. Nobody's like, oh my god, Kyle has come after me, and I must. Everybody's just like, yeah, Kyle's just saying he disagrees. That's it. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah, I agree, and I would say too. I think that we can do a better job. All of us, really. We don't even have to be a part of a network, but just doing appearances on different people's shows and just increasing awareness. I try to bring on smaller channels. I also obviously bring on people like Kyle. 'Cause I feel like that's important. And Kyle goes on to this channel just like he'll go on to TYT, or generally a lot of people who have invited him. I mean, I saw him giving a lot of interviews when we were at Politicon together. Giving interviews to just about anybody in the VIP section who would ask. So
I am more of a loner, though. I will say that you're probably a lot better at this than I am. In that, like, you actually make an effort to reach out to people and have all these interviews. I don't usually do interviews, so for me, I am more of a loner, and my show is really geared more towards, like, let me just run my mouth about the news type stuff. But yeah, every now and then, like, I'll pop up some places every now and then. And funny enough, I think that's why people really like it when I do it, is that it is kind of rare. Like, me talking to you now, I don't know the last time I've done an interview. It's been a long time since I've done any kind of interview with anybody.
Oh,
so, you know.
Honestly, it might have been Politicon that you had your last, like, round of serious interviews.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I may have done one or two since then, but nothing crazy. Like, it's been...
Because the primary started almost right after, and you were, like, balls to the wall. So
yeah, that's true. I was like super, because it's a lot. You know what it's like. You do this exact same thing, like to follow all the stuff. It's just there's a lot that goes into that. It's not so like people see the finished product and they think like, oh, okay, he's just talking, and it's like, well, but I also read 12 different articles, and I also had to like highlight the parts that I wanted to talk about and make the bullet points, and then I also had to find the 17 freaking clips I just showed you guys in the show, and it's like. That doesn't just fall from the sky. That's why
I find it hilarious when people think they can just come in and I'm gonna start my channel and I'm gonna start talking shit about how much because a lot of people have thought that the best way to get popular in today's progressive indie media is to trash and belittle the efforts made by other indie media. I would have done it better. I was like, okay, I'll give it 2 months. They never make it past 2 months. They do 3 or 4 videos that go viral because they use one of our names, and then they just fade into the darkness. Because it's just not easy, bro. It's not.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and this is what people don't get usually, is that you have to keep showing up. Like, you have to keep, like, I'm here. And you might think that you want to do this right now, but then after, like, a month and a half, you're just like, I don't feel like doing this right now. And then, like, that becomes 4 days, and then that becomes a week and a half, and then that becomes a month, and next thing you know, you're just not doing it. And you know, and I know that, like, it's just like, at a certain point, everything you do, there are going to be days where you're just, like, going through the motions. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so people don't understand that that's just the way life is, and you have to keep showing up no matter what. And so it's the people who have that stick-to-itiveness that end up breaking through in one way or another. You know
the days that I know you're just going through the motions? When you do like 2 videos of Trump covers that day, I'm like, oh shit, Kyle's just trying to put out a video today. Because I know damn well he ain't feel like thinking about it, and it's really easy to get Trump in trouble. Like, it's really easy to...
No, in my defense, like, I think that my Trump coverage is the best because I never do the fake outrage. Like, I'm always like usually when I cover Trump, I'm like laughing and having a good time because, like, sometimes it's just so silly and so ridiculous. So, and I try to make a point of that because I think the fake outrage is it's just like, relax. Just relax. It's not that serious.
It's like, and it's once again, it's inconsistent because the same people who would have the fake outrage about Trump, when it comes to Biden, well, I just have a problem with the way he... Hold on, double back. Why is it that Trump incites so much rage in you? Like, you feel like you have to lash out. Then when Biden does something similar, says something similar, or does the exact same thing, you're like, well, I just have disagreements with him, but we can work it. It's disproportionate. Doesn't make any sense. But your Trump coverage is actually the only negative Trump coverage that I watch, actually.
Me too. I can't watch Trump. I can't watch other liberals and lefties talk about Trump because I'm just like, stop.
Yeah, and it's inconsistent. It's inconsistent with how they do their coverage of everybody else. And for you, I can at least say that if you cover Biden one way, you're going to cover Trump the exact same way if he does the exact same thing, and vice versa. So it's not like you're just, you're not picking on Trump or picking on Biden. You're calling out both of them. And I got 2 more super chats because y'all think y'all slick. Y'all try to slick them all in at the end so y'all can ask Kyle. I see what y'all doing. I'm gonna get you though. All right, Dan Campbell, thank you very much for the super chat. Ventura is the great equalizer, an independent libertarian, or independent with the libertarian streak. All of Tulsi's and Bernie's policies and the courage not to compromise or endorse corporate candidates. Well, I would agree with that. Let me see if there's another question. Let me see. Oh, Jay Wood? No? Jay Wood, what was your question? Did I find it? Found it. Okay. Tell Kyle that Jamal Thomas has been reaching out. Oh, why you put him on spotlight?
No, he hasn't.
He hasn't. Oh, yeah. I guess he hasn't. I mean,
he hasn't. I've had conversations with him in the past, and he hasn't reached out to me in any particular way. I haven't noticed. No, I'm serious. I would know if he reached out to me.
I mean, I'll say he could just go to his DM and check, y'all. I mean,
exactly.
So, Jamal, you heard it here.
I've had conversations with him before.
You heard it here, Jamal. Just reach out to him. All right, and Adam Gulak, thank you very much. Or Gulik. It seems like AOC is hedging too much. She may want to do the right thing and support the right policies while She may want to do the right thing and support the right policies while cozying up to the power too much. I'm assuming you mean do the right. If she's gonna cozy up to power, at least support the right. She's saying take the Pramila Jayapal approach. That's what it seems like. Because
but Pramila has that same approach though, which is like.
But no. But Pramila introduces policies though. That's what I'm saying. So so it's always been very, very hard for me to critique or attack Pramila because every Hillary Clinton endorsement, she then establishes an entire committee for Medicare for all and gets most of the House to support the policy. So and then she introduces a better version of it than Bernie does.
True, so but there's no hardball with Pelosi from Pramila either.
No, that's what I'm saying. But there's no hardball with her, but she introduces progressive policies. There's actually but AOC doesn't do that though. That's what he's saying. She has 2 bills that she sponsored. She co-sponsors other people's legislation, but she only has 2 revolutionary quote unquote bills that she sponsored. And outside of that, she talks about what she wants on Twitter, but doesn't actually put that legislation forth and do the congressional work. Like we know that Medicare for all under a Trump administration, not even necessarily because of Trump, but because of the Senate, isn't going to pass. But because of the branding, if nothing else. But she still went out of her way to put that committee together, get other legislators behind it, because she's like, if it doesn't pass this session, we want everything in place so that it can pass in the next session. And you could do the same thing with UBI and these other policies, and I think that's what they're referring to.
That's true, but what I would just say real quick is imagine if you had AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, Tulsi Gabbard, make a list of all Raul Grajava, all the people who are pretty good on these policies, right? And they all got together and they all did a press conference and they all straight up said, you know why we don't have a vote on Medicare for all? Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want us to have a vote on Medicare for all.
Yes, so, I said that the other day.
You leverage the power of the people against her. But see, what they're afraid of is, Pelosi's going to retaliate against me. But then you know what you do? You take the retaliation that she has against you and you go public with it. And you say, guess what? I was trying to fight for the people and get Medicare for all, and 69% of the American people want Medicare for all. And she turned around and she just took away my committee assignment. So it seems like she's punishing me because I want to fight for my constituents and I want to fight for the people. That's the thing is there's no leveraging of power. There's no back and forth. There's no standing up. There's no having a set of balls. It's always like, we'll wait for a day to do it, and it's like you're never going to do it. You're all just weak, and you're all cucks to the Democratic.
You know what? Well, so everybody that you just named, we know for a fact called for UBI of some kind, right? We know this for a fact. All of them. What happens because AOC, I would say, is just based off of her platform, she could, if she calls a press conference, hey, I'm going to conduct a press conference, and she reaches out to Tulsi and squash whatever problem she has with her, reaches out to the squad, reaches out to Pramila Jayapal and the others. Ro Khanna even has a press conference and says, we're trying to give you UBI. We went to Nancy Pelosi. We tried to freeze your mortgages and freeze this. We went to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to try to get this into these bills. Guess what? The Republicans are problematic. They didn't want it. And Nancy Pelosi led the Dems in making sure this didn't happen. We are trying to fight for you. They are literally holding our constituents hostage, saying we're going to take away medical funding for your district. Like, just let it all out. What are they going to do? Oh, they're going to pull me out of my committee. Like, they're going to pull me out of my committee assignments. AOC raised, hey, another press conference. Man, let me tell y'all what just happened.
Yes. Exactly, man. And see, this is what the Freedom Caucus used to do back in the day. This is what the Tea Party used to do. When you got Tea Party Congress people, they went in there. They were like, listen, straight up, I don't like John Boehner. John Boehner doesn't own me. John Boehner's not going to control my votes. And so they would throw their weight around. And they were very powerful as a result of that. But the Progressive Caucus and the supposed left-wing Democrats, they're like kitty cats. They're like, okay, yeah, whatever you want. I'll end up following the rules and I'll fall in line and I'll never call out my leadership. And it's just like, okay, well then don't be surprised when people on the left are not too enthusiastic about supporting you.
Yeah, it's true, man. And I just wish, I feel like there's on everybody's behalf, on the left that had, like, for the people that kind of, I don't want to say inherited these platforms. They've earned the platform they have. But they then see, wow, if I was able to do this from scratch, well, what can I gain next? You know, and what office can I get? What title can I get? What title can I get? And because of that, anyone who's perceived as a threat to that, Rokana has been guilty of this. And it's clear that he had like a vendetta out against Tulsi at a certain point where he would either lie about her or completely erase her from certain things. AOC has been guilty of this to a certain degree. Even when it comes to her counterpart, Rashida Tlaib, when she is getting berated or introduces really, really good legislation and is completely ignored. And I feel like to a large degree, Ilan and Rashida have been guilty of this. Ayanna as well. Bernie himself, even if they perceive someone as a threat, they haven't. And I think that Andrew Yang probably plays this game better than all of them. He does not. He embraces literally everybody. Literally anyone who can help him get what he wants, he will embrace you. Now, I believe he should be a little bit more judicious in how he goes about that, but we can learn a little bit from that. Where it's like he's like, there's no office too high that I cannot use some help getting there.
Yeah, but at what point did he lose his core? That's the issue.
Which is why I say he should be a little bit more judicious in how he goes about.
Yeah,
but he did try to coalesce with people, though. He did try to coalesce with the progressives.
That's true, but I think the thing that's frustrating is that all these people are people, and we're all are dealing with personal psychology when dealing with people, and it's like, I don't care about any of the problems or the personality clashes or whatever. Like, I just want to get Medicare for all, dog. Like, just can we just put it aside? Like, can we just not be petty little bitches for 3 seconds?
Pick 2 or 3 issues and say, no matter what we disagree with, we got it. When it's time to go hard on these issues, we got to.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, man. Thank you very much for the super chat, guys. I'm not going to hold up Kyle any longer. Make sure y'all go. I mean, y'all probably already follow him on Twitter and YouTube. So cool, whatever. But if you don't, here's Kyle Kulinski. Go follow him at Secular Talk. We will be live again on Thursday on Rockfin exclusive premium content for the MCSC network. Also, make sure to go watch the Combo Couch on Rockfin tomorrow. They have their Rockfin exclusive day tomorrow, which is Wednesday, where they will be posting exclusively to Rockfin, and they have their Rockfin premium stream at 5 p.m. Eastern to 7 p.m. Eastern. So go follow them. Other than that, Kyle, you got anything to say before we head up out of here?
No, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. I know like I said, I know you've been feeling a little bit down and trying to play catch up, but I appreciate you taking these couple of hours to come say what's up to the people, man. So for everybody else, good. We need you, man. When you was gone for a while, we was all kind of like, hold on, where the hell was Kyle at? Why ain't he been? It was like a bunch of stuff that happened during that week too. On top of it,
yeah, that's true.
So glad you're back, man. I'm glad you're feeling healthy, man. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream interview of Mikasa Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. If you like that segment of Mikasa Sukasa, don't forget to like the video and smash that subscribe button. Want access to members only live streams, behind the scenes footage, and other premium content? Well, you can endorse us on Rockfin Premium, become a patron through Patreon, or you can sign up for the MCSC Premium membership through YouTube. All the links are in the description below. But hey, more than anything else,
more than anything else,
always remember,
Find your balance.
Find your balance.
Find your balance.
Find your balance. Find your balance.
Find your balance.